Hello, welcome back to Beauty Bee and to a potentially overly thorough review of the Maybelline City Mini Palette in Chill Brunch Neutrals. I have used this goodness knows how many times, well over 100 at this point, probably even closer to 200, and clearly I have used quite a bit of it. I have pan in 4 of the 6 shades, and today I will be giving you my thoughts. So let's start with the more objective elements. This is a 6-pan eyeshadow palette from Maybelline. These have been out for a few years. I want to say that these probably came out in 2016 or 2017. Like a lot of drugstore makeup, the price on this can vary quite a bit depending on the retailer you're looking at. I saw prices ranging from anywhere around $6.50 to about $10, but I would say that the Mode was probably right around $7.50. It seemed like a lot of stores, including some really big ones like Walmart and Target, had this for that $7.50 price point. There's 0.14 ounces or 4 grams of product in this palette. It does not give me a breakdown, nor could I find online a breakdown of if any of these shades are larger than the others. Just eyeballing it, to me it looks like they are pretty close. For comparison, a single MAC eyeshadow is about 0.05 ounces, so there is about the equivalent of 3 full-size MAC eyeshadows, meaning that each of these pans is about half the size of a pretty standard size single shadow that you could purchase. Let's walk through the shades one by one. There are 2 mattes. We have this almost white shade. It's actually a super cool toned, very light pink. And then we have this purpley shade. Give you swatches of both of those. These swatches are probably going to be a little bit rough because it's kind of hard to get my finger in there these days. I'm getting to the end of these. These are both quite lightly pigmented, however they can be built up. Here is that almost white shade. The lilac shade looks a bit more purple in the pan than it really translates on my skin. When I build this up, I see sort of a mauvey brown. It is what I have in my crease today. However, I can bring through a little bit more purple depending on what I pair it with. So it's something to note, but it's not really a big negative for me. Formula on these Maybelline City Mini mattes is quite consistent. I have not only this one, I also have a palette that is solely mattes, the Matte About Town palette. Clearly I've used this one quite a bit as well. And I find that across the board, these are all very soft to the touch. They are pretty powdery. If you were to run your brush across this, you would kick up quite a bit of powder. However, they blend really, really easily. And I find that they are a really nice level of buildable. I mean, I can get this as quite a light wash of color. I mean, I think you can see that. But I can also definitely build them up. I can't quite get these to a point where they are super vibrant, super bold, but I don't want that. Really, with matte eyeshadows in particular, it would be very, very rare and only with very specific colors that I would want full pigment. So I'm really happy with that, actually. Now for the shimmers, there are 4 different shimmers in this palette, and though I think the formula is quite similar across the 4 shades, I think there are sort of 3 different tweaks on a very similar formula. The first formula would be for this gold. This is quite a warm shade, particularly in contrast to everything else in the palette. This has quite a bit of peach to it, and it is metallic. There is definitely a little bit of sparkle in there, but it is a very smooth sparkle. We're not going to see little pieces of glitter with this shade the way we do with some of the other ones. Which, speaking of this more glittery formula, we have this, it looks to me like a purple in the pan, but it definitely pulls very cool toned brown on the eye, and then this silver. Let me get some swatches. These are quite glittery, and it tells you on the back, which I didn't read for ages because, you know, why would I read, to use these over the almost white shade, and that is essential. It does not matter how much eye primer you put down. These will fall out everywhere unless you use that white underneath. I don't know why. I've never had another eyeshadow that performs that way, but for some reason these really need that white. And I think you can tell just from my swatches, they're a little bit more on the chunky side. I don't know if that's just because they're a little bit deeper than the gold, but they additionally just have a little bit more glitter to them. The glitter's not quite as smooth, and I think that the individual particles of glitter are just a little bit bigger than they were in the gold shade. I also find that much like that lilac matte, both of these pull a lot more brown on my eye and even in the swatch than I think they look in the palette. In the palette, I definitely see more differentiation between these two shades than I see either in swatches or on my eye. And these are definitely low points in the palette for me. It took me a long time to learn how to use them, and by the time that I actually figured out how to make them work for me, I had these cool tone shimmery shades in my collection that I much preferred. And then the last tweak on that formula comes in this deep purple. This is more pigmented than the other shades that we have looked at, and there is not any glitter to this that I actually see come through on my eye. I do see a little bit of it in the pan, but definitely less than the other three. And much like the other shades we've talked about, this pulls a lot more brown on my eye than it looks, at least to me, in the pan. I am wearing this today as eyeliner, and I don't know that I really see any purple coming through. I don't know that on my eye it looks any different than a dark brown might. I think this is the most subtly shimmery of the three shimmer formulas in the palette, and I wish that it was just a little bit more purple. I think that would make this a little bit more versatile and a little bit more interesting. I used this eye palette for my look today, with one addition that we'll talk about in just a second. I will play the video of me applying this on silent over on this side of the screen, but just to talk through what I did, I started with eye primer. I don't show that in the video, but then I layered this white over it just to provide that base, and then with my finger I went in with the gray on most of my lid. I would say the intersection of my lid to about the 3/4 mark, and I deepened up the outer corner with this more purple brown shade, and I used the same purpley brown on a smudger brush under my eye. I used a little bit of this lilac matte in my crease, and I darkened up my upper lash line using this purple. That is all that I show in the video. However, after I'd applied mascara, put on my blush, I realized that I wanted something a little bit more. So I ended up pulling for my Viseart Petite Pro 3 and adding just a little bit of this really light pink shimmer in my inner corner. I just needed a little bit of something to pull all of this together. and that was the something I needed this morning. And for me, that is a pretty big drawback of this palette, that there is nothing light and shimmery in here. The closest thing would be this peachy gold, but I don't really feel that the peachy gold goes with the other shimmers in the palette all that well to begin with. And it's also too dark, at least for me, to use in my inner corner or as a brow bone highlight. I wish that this had been something a little bit cooler and a little bit lighter. I think that would help the palette, help it be more of an all-in-one for me. And I think it would have made a little bit more of a cohesive color story. Overall, I think that the looks that I've gotten from this palette, this one I'm wearing today included, are quite pretty, and they are definitely easy. I think it's hard to mess up a look with this palette as long as you use this white underneath either of these two shades. However, I don't think that this is anything special. If you are looking at this Maybelline City Mini line, I would recommend the matte palette over the mixture of matte and shimmer ones. I don't think the shimmer formula on this is very impressive at all. I find that I need to use my finger to get nice color payoff with these. And though the effect, even with my finger, is a little bit more on the subtle side, I think that it reads as a little bit more of a higher end eyeshadow in the subtle shine with a little bit of sheerness. It's just, I want a little bit more versatility. I want to be able to get that sheerness or build up to a really high impact full color shimmer, and I just can't do that with this palette. So my recommendation would be, if you are looking for easy, cool toned makeup as a beginner who doesn't have a lot of, if any, eyeshadow, this is not a bad option. I think that especially once you use a coupon on that $7.50 price tag, if you're looking more at $5, I think that's a very reasonable price for this palette. I think the quality is reasonable for that price, but I think that you can probably find better things at the drugstore. And if you do have a bit of a larger eyeshadow collection, I don't think there's anything special enough about the shades in this palette or the formula that it will add a lot of value. I don't see people regularly reaching for this over other eyeshadows that they own. So there we have my review of the Chill Brunch Neutrals palette. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would suggest checking out a couple of my other overly thorough reviews. I will have my playlist linked up in the cards, and I hope you'll consider liking and subscribing. I really enjoy doing this style of video, and I do have a few more things that I have reached 100 uses on, as well as a few things that are starting to get close to 100 uses on that you will probably be seeing overly thorough reviews of in the future. Thank you again for watching, and I really hope that I will see you all next time. Bye!